This is just a quick overview of my final project, the code inside it, and how it works. And as you can tell, my code also has proper white spacing all the way through it. The way I did my hit detection was to store the X and Y position of the player, virus, and toilet paper in their own separate list. After that, I used this simple statement right here to determine if any of the X and Y positions collide with the current X and Y position of the player. If we have a collision, then we return the value of true, which is right here. After that, we run this custom function right here, which runs a for loop that assigns the index to IDX and the X and Y position of the object you collided with to enemy position. We then do a check to see if we returned a value of true during our hit detection from the last function, and if we did, then we pop the index from the list and we increment the cured count and decrease the TP count. I have used multiple lists and tuples in this project. I use lists to capture and update our X and Y position of the objects on the screen, and I use tuples for things that won't change like colors or other various settings. In this project, I'm writing different text and values to the screen. Right here is where we choose our font so we can use it later. Down here, I have strings that read out to the screen to give us static text, but I also display values by converting floats and integers into a string. If we look through my code here, we can see that it's all nested properly. All of it has correct indentation and correct white spacing. I determine the win or loss based on if the cured counter or the infected counter reaches 100 first. We use our hit detection that we talked about earlier to grab the TP, which increases our TP remaining counter. If we have TP remaining, we're able to hover over the virus, which will remove it from the screen and increase the cured counter. However, if the virus reaches the left side of the screen, then the infected counter gets incremented. I also added text to the screen which keeps count of our cured and infected values. There is also a timer so you know exactly how long it takes you to win or lose each round. A few of the things I used not taught in class would be a timer based off the time library, a built-in start screen, and I even used a delay from the random library to create short intervals between spawns of the different objects. As you can see from the top, I used multiple libraries to create this final project. We already went over a for loop, which were used to enumerate the list and assign the index to a value. Down here, we have two separate while loops. This first one gives us the main menu and will stay inside that loop until the spacebar is pressed. The second one here is the main game. This loop will continue running until we close our game or set running to true. I use multiple if and if else statements throughout this project. One example would be the character movement. I determined if a key is pressed, and if that key is pressed, then we add value to either the X or Y coordinate inside the P start list. We then change the player image so it is facing the direction you are moving. I used images for the player, the toilet paper, and the virus in this project. For the player, I used multiple images so we could change the direction the player is faced. I use a class to store attributes that I call into functions. The reason to use a class is to keep relatable objects together. This will give me a single location where I can edit all the relatable items to the class. The attributes I'm storing in the class are strings. The reason I decided to add strings through a class is because the strings can be called into any part of the code later, even the functions. This will also make it much more convenient for me or anybody else later who wants to come back and edit my code. Here I define the class. I then use the init method, which will let us create attributes and initialize them later. I use self to represent the instance of the class itself, and then we can use that to access the different attributes or methods within the class. Most of this game was built on custom functions. There is two main reasons I decided to do this. The first being that all the mechanics in this game use their own function, and this makes it easy to make changes later. The second reason is because it's easier to call in a function over and over than it is to rewrite the same code. So if I decide to make extra levels later, I can just call in the functions for the main mechanics and build a new level around it. Now I'm going to show you guys how the game works. Here's our main menu. We can press space to start. And as you can see, our timer is going in the top and we can't do anything with the viruses at all. You can see the infected counter is climbing every time a virus reaches the left side of the screen. If we grab the toilet paper, we get toilet paper remaining at the bottom and we can now pop the viruses. Every virus we pop, our cure counter goes up. We can keep doing this. Once we hit cured 40, the things are going to change. The viruses are going to speed up and there's going to be more on the screen at once. And boom. And we also run out of toilet paper and then toilet paper starts dropping again. So the viruses also increase their the amount they infect when they hit the side of the screen now. Go ahead and let them win real quick. And when you lose, everything gets popped off the screen, shows your time remaining, everything's good. Go ahead and close that. Now we'll try and win a round. Basically the same thing. Grab the toilet paper, start beating the viruses. Come on, spawn. Sorry about the loud keyboard, guys. Missed the first toilet paper, grab the second one. Oh, the infected counter is climbing. More toilet paper, grab all those viruses. We may lose again. Oh, we won just barely. And there's our timer, cured, infected, how much toilet paper we had remaining. And that's pretty much my final project.